This here is the intersection of Farley Branch and Oldfield Gap roads. For the town to be discussed on this episode of Let's Explore This, we need to take this road down, all the way down, into the Yellow Creek Mountains. But before we go any further, there is something that you definitely need to see. And that something is this pile of rocks right here. Well, no, not this pile of rocks, but this. Tell me, folks, what is this? It doesn't look like it's in much use anymore, so I'm assuming it's just sitting here abandoned. It looks like at one time it may have been something like, I don't know if I would call it a stables. I mean, yeah, there's little windows and stuff on that elevation right there. It likely was some kind of farm structure. That's my guess. But you know what, folks? We do not have all the time in the world on this episode to be focusing so heavily on this little structure right here. No, we do have to move on. Because we need to be, well, this here is the intersection with Oldfield Gap and Yellow Creek roads. Here, Yellow Creek Road. It goes in two directions. We must take the North Fork, I guess you could call it, in order to reach our destination for this episode, the little town of Yellow Creek. Roughly, this intersection here should suffice. That's all well and good, but what is this? Yellow Creek Falls. So, they mean to tell me that Yellow Creek has a big waterfall somewhere. Who would have known? It says it's only 0.3 of a mile of foot trail. Yeah, I know. I said there is not all the time in the world for extra stuff. But this is okay, I guess, so long as I get all the footage done before dark. So, I guess we're gonna see if we can find the falls sometime throughout the course of this episode. That does sound kind of cool, does it not? Okay, but first, this here is Graham County's 1972 Centennial. It does exist in book form, though its contents can easily be viewed via Graham County's own website. As the highlighted portion here suggests, an entry can be found within the book, an entry that delves deep into the history of Yellow Creek. The info found in this section of the book, it will be used to comprise the bulk of this episode. So, the Yellow Creek section of Graham County, it was one of the earliest regions to attract settlers. John Hamilton Kirkland entered vast land holdings, beginning with the property owned for over a century by the Crisps, who are descendants of the early settler. Reportedly, the original entry extended practically the length and breadth of the valley to near the head of Yellow Creek. Now, folks, yes, this here is about where the head of Yellow Creek lies. Someplace down there, because this is Wachacha Bald Road, and the head of Yellow Creek is said, according to maps, to be situated someplace in this vicinity. However, I am not going to be looking for what is likely a trickling of water down there because the head of the creek likely will not be much more than a little trickling. Regardless, this is the point because I have counted a couple of the turns, so it is in this immediate vicinity. That's all well and good, but folks, here we are kind of high up in the mountains, and this road here, it is not drivable by car. Yes, I had to hike a little bit. So, the Reverend Isaac Carringer, he came from the eastern part of North Carolina. Wait, what? The eastern part of North Carolina? Okay, well, he has a Find a Grave page. That page, it lists his birthplace as being in Buncombe County. So, the outlined box on this map here shows the location of Buncombe County. The eastern part of western North Carolina, maybe, but it is not in the eastern part of the state. Regardless, he did possess the land around and about the property that came to be occupied by Tom Ditmore. With the arrival of the Shopes, the Birchfields, the Schulers, and other energetic pioneers, a thriving community soon emerged. During that early period, Zachary Taylor Ditmore would open a flour and corn mill. Okay, folks, one thing I am going to mention is this. Throughout the bulk of this episode, I might speak of this or that place and show you this or that building. However, the building you see, it is likely not going to be related to the one being discussed. That's just often how it is. Many of those old buildings, to be discussed, like some early log cabin or whatnot, likely do not exist anymore. I can only show you what is here today in 2022. That is just how the cookie of history crumbles. So, Pat Jenkins had a general store near what came to be the Henry Grant home. Now, Pat Jenkins does sound like it could be a common name. If not much is given, I cannot be certain if a given name aligns perfectly. Anyhow, W.M. Barnes was reportedly also a merchant in the Yellow Creek community. The Garrisons, although arriving somewhat later, soon had the best sheep herd in the area. Yeah, this photo here, it is of Flora E. Garrison, though technically her last name was Millsaps. I guess that's fine, as it was the only actual photo of a local garrison I could find. But during the 1850s or 1860s, a simple log cabin structure was built on what was known locally as Meeting House Ridge, lying between what came to be the Ebon Ore and Posey Turpin properties. The log cabin served as a church and a school during these formative years. I don't think this is the person in question, but Tom Mashburn was the forerunner of the early teachers, and Isaac Carringer was the foremost of the first preachers. Now, here we are in Carringer Cove. Then, at about 1875, a similar but larger log building was constructed near the present church. Again, it served the dual purpose of worship and academics. Oliver Williams served as teacher and preacher in this second log building. In 1910, again at the same site, the county erected a plank building for school purposes. However, when the community agreed to weatherboard the building, they were permitted again to use the facility for a church. That white weatherboarded church, it was used until replaced by this present brick structure in 1968. With the coming of this here then new brick building, the last of the combination church and school buildings disappeared. Well, that brought an end to that distinct phase of Graham County history. Okay, folks, somebody has got to tell me why, in front of this church, am I looking at a pogo stick? No, it's not my pogo stick. I don't know whose pogo stick that really is, but I guess if you have nothing better to do, you can grab that handle, step on that thing, and go bouncing around the parking lot. That sure does sound like a lot of fun, but I have no time for that. But still, I do wonder if it's Reverend Place Green's pogo stick. Why? Well, Reverend Place Green, the grandfather of Reverend I.H. Green, was the pastor of Yellow Creek Baptist in the early 1880s. However, the church, it was not affiliated with the State Baptist Convention until 1887. Not sure if this here is the person in question, but during the early 1880s, Eliza Garrison established and taught the first Sunday school classes at Yellow Creek. Reportedly, these may have been the first in the county. Other early ministers leaving their imprint in this area of the county were Bill Pruitt, George Orr, and Sam Jordan. Somewhat later, the Yellow Creek community produced probably the most prominent of all of its native Graham County preachers, the Reverend Berter Ferguson Shope, who is pictured here, with who may be his wife, Dee Dee. Reverend Shope, who was taught to read by his devoted wife, had a strong impact upon religious life, not only in Graham County, but also across western North Carolina and eastern Tennessee for many years. He served as pastor of Robbinsville First Baptist longer than any other pastor in its history, 1937 to 47. Wow, look, a Yellow Creek mushroom. And it is even yellow. Well, yellowy and orangey, I guess. It kind of does mix. You know, being situated next to Yellow Creek. I guess what we have here is a yellow mushroom on Yellow Creek. Still, I wonder, is that an edible mushroom? I mean, if I eat it, would I get sick or not? Would I die? I don't know. You tell me. But as the community grew and expanded its geographic boundaries, the school facility in the central part of the community became inadequate and inconvenient. 2 one-room schools were then built, one at what came to be the Grady Myers Place, and the other near what came to be the Ross Ditmore Place. It was not until about 1939 that these were closed and children transferred to Topoco School. Okay, so this here, It is a photo of a small sawmill on Yellow Creek. It is one of the type common in the county in the early 1900s. You see, this area, the Yellow Creek area, it soon began to feel the heavy impact of the lumbering industry. Various operations began to set up shop on the creek. Just about the turn of the century, the English Lumber Company began operating a mill near what came to be the William Thomas Crisp property. This here is a photo of James Montreville English from Asheville, who spent a summer camping in the Yellow Creek area. Apparently, he began to take the train to Bryson City and then horse and wagon to the mill. A small, dinky locomotive fired by wood transported logs up and down the valley to the sawmill over the crude wooden tracks of the tram road. Oxen were used to get logs out of the mountains and down to that tram road. Then, about 1909, the George H. Christian Lumber Company set up operations near what came to be the Dovey Turpin Place, with Mac Mullins as mill foreman. Some 4 years later, another of the English brothers, he bought out the George H. Christian Lumber Company and moved it to the vicinity of what came to be the Need Williams property. The Broyhills also operated mills at various places in this section of the county during the later phase of the lumbering movement. Once the lumber was sawed, it was packed on wagons, hauled through this here Yellow Creek Gap and down Tuskegee Valley, and then ferried across the river to Wayside, a long-forgotten town now buried beneath the waters of Fontana Lake. From 1900 to 1925, practically every family was involved in some way in the lumbering operations. But, folks, today, in 2022, there is not a whole lot in the Yellow Creek area than a scattered array of rural residences. There is no store or restaurant in the immediate Yellow Creek vicinity. Still, if you look close enough, you might find a couple of regional oddities to be found here. Okay, folks, like usual, it's a brightly sunny day. Sorry about the sun, but there is something that I do have to show you. In fact, there is something here on both sides of the road. I think over here we've got a nice little park that we are going to check out. That way, all of you out there can get a view of the beautiful Yellow Creek here in the immediate Yellow Creek vicinity. But first, there is something over here. For this one, somebody has got to ask me what it was used for. Let's see. It's right over. If you blink your eyes, you won't even notice it. It's like hidden amongst all the shrubbery and stuff. It's like a concrete structure right here, almost built into the mountainside. It's got a door. But what is this? Okay, we have definitely got to check this one out. Internet. What? Was this like some kind of place they built for people to use the internet? Now, sure, look at the roof. It's got logs up there, planks, above the logs. The structure, it's like a cinder block, a CMU kind of structure. Look, here, there's even a ladder. Why is there a ladder here? I mean, it doesn't go up anywhere. Unless this may have been more than one story at one time. I have no idea. Hey, look, there's cinder blocks at the bottom of this ladder. Again, an internet sign right inside here. Okay, so now I'm in... Okay, this is kind of a really freaky place. Why is this even here? What was this used for? I don't know. But anyway, we're now going to walk across the road to the park, and I will meet you over by the creek. Well, not exactly. Well, yes, exactly, but first, we're going to go down these steps here, 'cause they're kind of cool looking. So I think you might want to see these. Anyway, all I need to do then is to trek across this open field here, and I think we'll be able to get an awesome view of Yellow Creek. Now, yes, there is this some kind of gate thingy here. I don't know if it's really a gate. Maybe it's there to keep people from going a little too far over. I don't know, but it does have nails on it. It's sticking out of it, so I wouldn't want to press my hands on there too hard. But beyond it, here is Yellow Creek. Let's listen to the creek for a bit.
Hey, it looks like there's a rapid down here. Let's check it out. There's a little falls over here. Yes. There's a little falls over here. However, that is not Yellow Creek Falls. I mean, you could call it that because it's on Yellow Creek, but they've actually got that name for a specific waterfall, but you'll be seeing that later on.
Right now, right here, you can find this place, Smoky Mountain Coating and Machining. What do they do? Well, they are listed as an engineering consultant via a Google search. And over here, you can find another place, Williams Construction and Cabinetry. So, if you ever need some kind of construction work or some cabinets built, and you are in Graham County, well, they have a website. Just look at that hardwood floor and staircase there. Well, folks, it appears we have another waterfall. This one is on a tributary of Yellow Creek. It is not on the main creek itself. Nonetheless, it is a fairly impressive waterfall. Once again, let's listen.
As you can see, right over there, tumbling all the way down. You might get actually a better view if we move down over along this road over here. You might be able to get a better view, so let's do that. And panning around over here, and yes, you can get a bit of a better view. There it is. Not sure the name of this one, but it is another waterfall I have found. Seems to be a lot of those around here.
Now, folks, yes, those are cool, but the most interesting thing you might be able to find here today in Yellow Creek is this: the Creekside Paradise Bed and Breakfast. Folks, you can stay the night here. They too have a website, though I wonder if the water moving in that pic there is in real time. Alright. Now, remember, near the beginning, when I showed you that sign talking about Yellow Creek Falls? Well, once again, let's listen.
So, I'm going to walk down this trail right here so I can give you a better look of these falls. And folks, don't go trying this at home because these rocks are nice and dangerous, and if you don't do this correctly, you'll be falling in the water. So, this is a good vantage point right over here, I think, to get a good view of Yellow Creek Falls. So, that's a lot of water tumbling down there. I can say that much. Some of those passages are very, 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 very narrow. Like, right over there. Look at the water coming up. There's a deep hole right there, folks. That water's pouring down in there. And it's just bouncing back up over there. Can you imagine the erosive process? I mean, it's wearing away to rocks and stuff. But anyway, this here is Yellow Creek Falls. We're not going to go any farther. Maybe there's a big waterfall up there, I don't know.
Now, yes, the trail, it does go up farther, but we're going to kind of call it quits and put Yellow Creek to rest right here. I just do not have a whole lot of time left, so what do you say? Why don't we just move on?